History is full of strong female leaders. Elizabeth I and Grace O'Malley, the Irish clan leader and pirate, dueled for control of a corner of Ireland. Mary, Queen of Scots, who had to deal with treachery from nearly everyone around her, including her own cousin, Elizabeth I. In modern times, we have seen Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady of Great Britain, Indira Gandhi with her Cruella de Vil hairdo, and Golda Meir each lead their respective nations through troubled times. Each of them had a story of a woman facing challenges and succeeding, at least to a degree, in a male dominated world. But most of these women did have some pretty strong advantages in their journey. Others had to claw their way to power or fight to keep it. But none of their stories quite compare to Ching Shih, scourge of the South China Sea. Welcome to History is Criminal. This week, we travel back to the 18th century and halfway around the world to China in order to take a look at the life and adventures of one of, if not the most successful pirates in history, Ching Shih. With me, as usual, is the unqualified, unapologetic, my wife, Kimberly. Ahoy, Kim. Are you ready for some piratical adventures in the 1700s China?
Oh, Mick, let's just agree right now. You stick to the facts, I'll stick to the humor and sass. Because that pirate voice, yikes. Ching Shi probably would have thrown you overboard before you even finished the R.
Born Shi Jiangshu to a poor family in the Quanzhou province, aka Canton, in southeastern China in 1775. Little is recorded, at least in Western sources, about her early years. Her life, she would be known by many names: Zhang Yi Shao, Shi Yang, Shuk Yang, among others, making research a little confusing at times for this episode. But Canton, as it would become known to the English speaking world, was thought of as the end of the Silk Road, and for a long time the only port open to foreign trade. So it's likely that her family was either poor farmers or possible humble traders. Whatever the case, it's clear she came from poverty. At some point in her teens or early 20s, she became a prostitute working on a floating brothel. It was here that she caught the eye of Zhang Yi, the powerful admiral of the Red Flag Fleet. The Red Flag Fleet was a large armada of pirate vessels that controlled the waters near Canton. Stories conflict on how the two came together. One story is simply that Yi asked for her hand and she agreed. The second story, the one I like more, it sounds more like a pirate thing, is that Yi sent a squad of his pirates to raid the brothel and capture Shi. The one detail that both stories include is the fact that Shi had some demands.
Man's good for her. That's called knowing your worth. Something women have been getting the side eye for since forever. A smart woman never just says yes. If a pirate is going to raid my workplace, the least I'm asking for is better health care and dental, maybe even a raise.
Yeah, maybe that's the key to getting universal health care in the United States. Pirate rule.
There you go.
It's unquestionable that she knew her value, both as a woman and a business person. She agreed to marry the Pirate King on one condition: she was to be given a position of second in command of the fleet and 50% of all profits from the fleet's plunder. She must have had some powerful hold over Yi because he agreed. Yi and she controlled a fleet of 200 ships that was only going to grow over the next few years. Yi was not only a feared pirate, but also a savvy businessman. He had been born into a pirate family in 1765, started in an early age sailing for his uncle Chang Kai. In his mid 20s, he controlled his own fleet of ships by operating as a true pirate, preying on ships of all nations, but he also signed on as a privateer. The record shows he fought in rebellions on both sides, government and rebel, across Vietnam and Malaysia. By 1801, he was back in the waters off southern China. There, he had a very lucrative trade, boarding ships traveling between Malaysia and China. Anything was fair game, from local fishing boats to intercontinental merchant vessels. It was the latter that proved, obviously, the most profitable. These large ships carried gold, silver, silk, spices, cotton, porcelain, and staples like food and fresh water. While his red flag fleet boasted possibly as many as 200 ships, he still faced competition. As a cunning businessman, he had a plan. In place of fighting each other while dodging Chinese, British, Dutch, and Portuguese warships, it would be far more logical to form a pirate confederation, with himself in the position as pirate chief. After all, he had the most guns. Each fleet in the confederation sailed under a different color flag. While they operated independently of each other, this was a cartel that ensured they would not attack each other, and territory was divided between the fleets. More than a simple gentleman's agreement, it was enforceable and regulated with Yi at the top.
So basically, he invented the pirate version of corporate mergers and hostile takeovers. The only difference? Less paperwork, more cannons. Honestly, Mick, sounds like he was running a Fortune 500, only with, an eye patch.
And I patch, yeah. I don't think pirates are big on the paperwork. That's one thing I got to agree with. It became policy that if a merchant ship didn't carry enough provisions to feed his thousands of men, then they would raid local coastal villages. This quickly evolved into a protection racket. Under his protection, they would be safe not only from pirates, like himself, but anyone else who wanted to mess with them. Local officials were easily enough bought, kind of an offer you can't refuse. They also had little problem taking on the odd European ship, provided it wasn't too heavily armed. European ships came with an added bonus. You could ransom any captive crewman, unlike the captured Chinese, who were faced with the choice of becoming a pirate or being flogged to death.
Ouch.
It was possibly on one of these raids or while collecting profits from one of his gambling houses that he owned, because, yes, he was also a casino owner, that he saw the beautiful 26-year-old she. European sources claim that Yi was a hunchback. Now, while this is likely anti Yi propaganda, it does seem she was not smitten with him. So the deal was struck, and she became the second in command of a fleet of ships that would go on to number near 1,000, with tens of thousands at her command. It was not unheard of for women to serve on ships in China and even command at times. Apparently, the Chinese didn't have the same superstitions as European sailors when it came to having women on board a ship. But the position she would reach is mind boggling. Now going by the name Zhang Yi Sa, which literally translates into the wife of Zhang Yi, she started to earn the respect of the men sailing under her. Approximately 5 years would pass before she got the chance at command.
Not exactly Prince Charming material, but she saw the bigger prize power. Love stories are cute, but commanding thousands of pirates, that's legendary.
On the 16th of November, 1807, Yi fell overboard off the coast of Vietnam. A gale had struck the fleet, and Yi was unlucky enough to be caught by a wave breaking over the gunwale of the large junk and swept out to sea. As second in command, she assumed leadership of the Red Flag Fleet. The real question was, what would the other fleet leaders in the Confederation do when they learned that Yi was dead and a woman, a former prostitute, was now in command of his ships? Ready for a little conspiracy theory?
Always ready for a little conspiracy.
A second story said that Yi was killed while fighting in Vietnam. While records can be sketchy dating back in the 1800s, it's what happened next that might cause folks to question what really happened to the Pirate King. She was voted to the position of leader by the captains of the other ships in the fleet. Now, this is something a lot of people don't understand. Pirates, both European and Asian, had a very egalitarian, democratic way of picking their leaders. She gained support of Yi's nephew and uncle and other key family members, but it was a quick romance and business move that really started to grow her power. She gained the support of Yi's uncle and nephew, but it was her relationship with her late husband's stepson, Chung Pao Sai. She would promote Sai to the captain of the ship and took him as her lover. Though he was the captain, it was clear she was in charge. Working to win the support of the captains of the other fleets by leading raids on numerous targets, she was soon recognized as the leader of the pirate coalition. Whether pirates off the coast of China, the Caribbean, or the Mediterranean, one thing holds true. If you can't make booty, you will not be captain long. And this is where she showed her real genius. Under her leadership, the Red Flag grew to include 800 ships. The coalition boasted 1,500 ships and perhaps between 60 to 80,000 men. With this firepower, they no longer feared the small fleets sent by Europeans into the region.
That's why she thrived. The guys were chasing treasure, but she built an empire. That's not just pirate genius, that's CEO energy, but with cannons.
One British officer described a run in with the Red Flag fleet. Quote, 60 or 70 sails of the Landerones, a name used by Europeans meaning bandits, passed within the most impudent manner within range of the guns. Determined to punish the presumption of these pirates, the frigate opened a smart fire on them, which was received by the Landerones with the most coolness and indifference without even returning shot. It would have been hard not to see she, even at a distance, like many famous pirate leaders, Calico Jack, Blackbeard, she had a fashion sense. Among her signature looks was a black turban and a long purple cloak. I don't know what the 1905 version of the Chinese middle finger was, but I've read that in China today, it's holding up the pinky finger. I picture she standing on the bow, black turban and purple cloak fluttering in the breeze, giving a pinky to the Brits.
See, now that style. Forget Jack Sparrow's eyeliner and bargain bin scarves. She was serving full runway realness in black and purple, while flipping the Brits the 1805 version of the bird.
As for the Chinese Navy, she took them on in battle twice. In one battle, the Navy retreated to shallow water where her larger junks couldn't go. Undeterred, she ordered her men to swim to the naval vessels and board them, which they did. When all was said and done, she had reduced the Chinese Navy by half. Now, the pirates wouldn't get off scot free. The Yellow Flag fleet was lost in battle to the Navy, but she now controlled the waters off Canton. How'd she command such loyalty? It was a combination of strict discipline and knowing how to share the wealth. Some of her management followed rules set by her late husband, but most of the changes she made worked to make the crews more money. And in this case, mo money didn't mean mo problems. In fact, that the opposite was true. Mo money meant more loyal captains and crews.
Exactly, Nick. Biggie said, "Mo money, mo problems." But Ching Shih said, "Mo money, mo pirates that'll row for me." That's called leadership with a profit margin.
Yeah. Now, she banned the mistreatment of female captives, allowing pirates to buy a wife for $40, provided that that particular woman was not being held for ransom. It was a somewhat cruel system. If a female captive was viewed as unattractive and not worth ransom, they were released. So in this case,
You
being
ugly, you go.
yeah, it might be good to be unattractive because you get to leave. Those held for ransom were not held under the best circumstances. Matter of fact, it was pretty brutal. But any crew member who assaulted a female captive was beheaded. If attractive but of no value for ransom, then a crew member could buy that captive as a wife. Crew members were not allowed to go ashore without permission. Punishment for the first offense was to have your ear slit. The second offense was death, as was giving an order contrary to a superior's orders, pocketing any booty for yourself, raping female captives. Those all met the death sentence. Lesser offenses like desertion were faced with flogging or having your ear cut off. I said she was strict. However, she did insist that townspeople be paid for the provisions taken. although that was sometimes overlooked.
Wow. Death for disobedience. But don't worry, your veggies are comped. Pirate code with a receipt?
This is not to say that she was practicing a kinder, gentler form of piracy. After defeating the Chinese Navy near the village of San Han, they torched the city. 80 villagers lost their lives in that attack. September through October of 1808, the fleet started a reign of terror with the gold entering Canton proper. An estimated 10,000 villagers died as the fleet came within 25 miles of Canton, which was under the control of the Portuguese. She was able to take on two Portuguese warships at Macau, but it seems she was unable to capture any of the major cities along the coast. But with each victory, the fleet and booty grew. But it was the way she dealt with paying members of the Red Flag Fleet that shows her understanding of business and maybe psychology. All booty was placed in a common hold. There it was evaluated with exact records taken. Any ship that brought in an especially large haul was given 20% of the take, with the remaining 80% placed in the common hold and divided among the rest of the fleet. This gave incentives for ships to take bold action to capture vessels, but also ensured that every ship in the fleet had reason for the other's success. Under her leadership, the Red Flag Fleet was the most powerful fleet in the region, and the wealth poured into their coffers.
Look at that. Profit sharing, incentives, accurate record keeping. Ching Shih basically invented the pirate's 401k. Meanwhile, modern corporations are still trying to figure that one out.
As I said, you should just let pirates run everything. It was possible that things were going too well. By 1809, pirates were putting such a massive dent in trade that even the largest cities were having trouble bringing in enough food to feed their populations. This forced the Chinese government to double their efforts to stop the pirates. At the same time, the leader of the Black Flag Fleet launched a mini rebellion, not aimed directly at Shi, but her lover, Sai. The Black Flag Fleet leader, Keopotai, first refused to come to the aid of the Red Flag Fleet when they were fighting a combined Chinese and Portuguese fleet near Kong. Then he later actually attacked the Red Flags. His motive in doing this seems to be jealousy of the Red Flag's favorable territory, and it also seems possibly jealousy of Sai's relationship with Shi. Even though Kyopo Tai was victorious in battle, it was clear his days as part of the Great Pirates Confederacy were over. Now an enemy of various governments and without the protection of the coalition, he would surrender himself to authorities. He was granted a pardon and given a job as pirate hunter. Just months later, she decided it was time to call it quits. It wasn't that the authorities were closing in on her. She still controlled the waters of most of the South China Sea. Neither the Chinese Navy nor the Europeans could do much to stop her. It seemed it was just time to hang it up. Time to take her black turban and purple cloak and hang 'em up. But she did it in style. On 18th of April, 1810, she sailed her fleet of 260 junks into Canton Harbor. Each flew all their flags, crews at the ready. To the people on shore, this must have seemed like an invasion. Docking at the wharf, she marched down the gangplank straight to the local authorities and demanded a pardon. Now, I've not seen any recordings of what was actually said, but I have a feeling it might have been something like, "Give me a pardon or I'm going to destroy the city." In any case, she was given very generous terms. The pirates could keep everything they had stolen, but they would have to give up most of their ships and weapons. Sai was allowed to keep 20 of his junks and was given a commission in the Chinese Navy. Most of the pirate crews were recruited into the Navy and given the task of, you guessed it, pirate hunting. Now, it almost seems like China's plan is just make all the pirates pirate hunters. You don't have any pirates anymore.
Then they'd be out of a job.
Then they become pirates again, and then they make them pirate hunters again. It's just a wonderful cycle. Now, Those are the Red Flag Fleet who became pirate hunters. They actually would even fight alongside the British when Hong Kong became a British colony in 1841.
Ching Shih retires like queen, and somehow she also walks away with all the loot. Diva level legendary.
For she, it was a life of quiet retirement in the countryside. Not really. Not for she. She married Sai and had a son. As for work, she opened a very successful gambling house in Canton. And while the casino was successful, the real money came from her smuggling operation that she used the casino as a front for. Again, her keen mind for business allowed her to rise to the top in a whole new field. She never returned to the sea and died in 1844 at the age of 69. Not bad for a time when the average life expectancy in China was 32. Over the next 180 years, she served as a model for numerous fictional pirates, including Mistress Ching and the Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. But none of them compared to the real Ching Shih, from humble beginnings to pirate queen to casino owner and smuggler, a woman whose beauty and brains allowed her to dominate in a world ruled by ruthless men and stare down navies.
She spent most of her years outsmarting men, navies, and anyone who thought women couldn't run an empire. Beauty, brains, and zero patience for fools.
That is right. Worldhistory.org proved to be a great resource for this episode, and a big thank you to hearmyname.net. Hopefully, I didn't butcher anything too bad in this episode. This has been History is Criminal. Join Kim and I next week as we take on another story of dirty deeds from the long ago past. Until then, if you liked what you heard, tell a friend. And if not, tell an enemy. Never suffer alone.